That was General Irabo, the Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, assessing the performance of the armed forces in curtailing insecurity. Now, the Nigerian Air Force is another central plank in the fight against insecurity across Nigeria. To find out how they are doing and how they perceive the fight, I spoke to Air Commodore Edward Gapquet. He's the spokesman for the Nigerian Air Force. And I started by asking him if he believes the military is winning the fight against Nigeria's many insurgencies. The 2019 Global Terrorism Index, which is sort of a respected way of measuring terrorism across the globe, says Nigeria is the third most dangerous country for terrorism. And that has seen no improvement since 2017, suggesting that your assessment that you're winning the war is not acceptable by people who measure these things.
I can't question what yardstick they used to arrive at this kind of a conclusion, but I can tell you I'm on ground here.
So what is the yardstick you are using to conclude that you are winning the war? Tell us.
Once we are able to get our people back to their homes, once people are being able to get back to their farms, once children are being able to go back to their schools, those are signs to tell you that, yes, there are some measures of successes that have been measured. I mean, have been achieved in this war against all forms of criminality in this country. That is what we used to measure, not somebody sitting down elsewhere in another country and going on the internet and drawing up figures. No.
But
we
these
wouldn't
measures
allow
that you talk about, I mean, I've just come back as part of putting this program together from a tour of my state, which is Zamfara. And I can assure you that people are not back in their farms.
Well, I can also assure you that only recently the UNDP rep made a very, very firm statement in the Northeast where it commended the armed forces and the governor of
so the fight against Boko Haram is
hold on. I can assure you that they've commended the armed forces and the government of Borno State that a lot of people have been able to go back to their settlements. That's not a small feat. Just some few days ago, the spokesperson of the Kaduna State government came on board and stated that over 50 bandits were killed, in operations, coordinated operations between the Army, Navy, and even the Air Force. So a lot has been done. About 3 weeks ago, too, we have seen where in Kankara local government, about 34 bandits were eliminated. So a lot of efforts are being put in place.
So if a lot of work is being done and you are recording successes, like you've listed, and we still have, large swathes of this country facing insecurity, does that not speak to the sort of the scale of the problem and how bad it is? Would I be right in saying we seem to be at war across this country, not just in the Northeast?
I think you seem to, from your question, obviously you seem to think the armed forces is the only solution to some of these problems.
No. I am speaking to a member of the armed forces, so I assume you cannot talk about things outside.
Thank you. I'm happy you know that.
So that's why my questions are limited to what the armed forces are doing.
To this security situation is very, very obvious. Everybody has to be involved. Members of the media themselves too have to begin to realize that they are part and parcel of the solution to this problem. You understand? It's only when we begin to realize that we will know that it goes beyond kinetic operations in themselves. So I don't think you just don't look at the armed forces and believe that yes, these are the people that will finally solve this problem for us and will move forward.
20 officers dead, 4 crashes, within sort of 6 months or so is quite a high number. Are there issues around maintenance of aircraft and training of personnel, in addition to the threats from...
When you are fighting an insurgency, like the one we are facing right now, the tendency is that your air operations are increased. You fly more. When you fly more and you train more, there is likelihood of what we call likely accidents. That could have been, that could have been
go up
of course.
on the volume of
yes,
what you're doing.
It's normal everywhere, even in developed countries. Even in developed countries, you can go and find out. The U.S. is not fighting any war at the moment on its land. Find out how many plane crashes they have in a year. In fact, between 2013 to 2018, the United States of America, that you know, not fighting a war between these 5 years, have had an average of 27 military crashes per annum, 2013 to 2017.
But they have more planes than you.
It doesn't matter, but they are not fighting the war. That's the issue. Are they fighting the war in the U.S.? They're not. Training, weather, so many things can come into play when you are in this kind of operations. I'm not giving an excuse that, okay, so because we are fighting insurgency, then we'll be having crashes. But these things are likely to happen. We are not happy about it. But when you are in the air, most of the time, sometimes these things happen.
Now, obviously, our understanding of the armed forces is they sort of help protect the territorial integrity of Nigeria. We found a situation where the police have been overwhelmed by some of the challenges that they face, and so we've had the army and other parts of the armed forces deployed to deal with, problems that are internal. I know you are in the northeast fighting Boko Haram. I know that you are in the northwest fighting the people they call bandits, and parts of, I don't know, north. So where else is the Air Force deployed? Are you at all in the east? Because, we hear rumors of, things being done to secessionists or people who are sort of causing trouble in the southeast. Can you confirm where and where you are operating?
The Nigerian Air Force is operating in all joint operations in this country. In the northeast, we are in Operation Hadinkai. In the northwest, Operation Hadarin Daji. In the southwest, Operation Awasi. In the south-south, Operation Delta Safe. We're also providing close air support to our troops in the southeast and all over the country. Wherever there is a joint operations ongoing, the Nigerian Air Force is fully engaged there.
So given the scale of the issue in the northeast, where we're dealing with a full terrorist army and we've been doing that for 10 years, there's kind of adequate understanding, I think, in the minds of Nigerians about, what sort of operations you'll be doing there. The same thing with the, northwest. We're not quite clear what you're doing in the southeast, given that what we're dealing with is a group that is looking for independence and is not so much an army, and they don't seem to sort of be as dangerous, if you like. At least that's our perception, as the people in the northeast and the people in the northwest. So what is the Air Force doing dealing with essentially people who are saying we don't want to be part of Nigeria, give us our own country?
Like I've told you before, once there's a joint operations, you have all the services involved there, and we can't be left behind. We have to give support to our ground troops.
You don't think it's an overkill?
We are just supporting ground troops, and that is what makes the difference with what we are seeing today in the armed forces. We are all working together.
So, I mean, overall, your outlook seems to be upbeat about your ability as the Air Force to contribute to securing Nigeria and making it safer. But sort of given the sort of major issues that we see across this country, I want to try and put you on the spot and ask you whether you can give a timeline based on being a professional and used to sort of fighting, when Nigerians can expect to be able to fully go back to their farms, to their schools and all of that. What sort of, I mean, when we started with Boko Haram, it was now 10, 12 years ago. Are we going to be still having this conversation in another 10 years? Or are you hopeful that
I'm very confident that like I've told you where we started with the kind of the level of cooperation we have seen that these service chiefs have brought to bear. you know, and of course with the fact that we've been receiving new platforms and the fact that the morale of our troops are high up there, I tell you, I assure you, and I assure Nigerians that, you know, it's just a matter of time before things begin to go back to normal. All we are looking for, all we are begging for, is for Nigerians, aside being patient, which they have exhibited over time, is the fact that, please, you know, this war we're fighting can only be achieved if we all join hands together. Please, in terms of providing that information that we require, you know, in terms of support for the armed forces. And when I say support, I'm talking about, you know, avoiding spreading rumors, fake news that will dampen or that could dampen the morale of our troops out there, you know. I've seen how other countries treat their armed forces. The armed forces that are far less, you know, combatant or sophisticated like the Nigerian armed forces. You know, let's get a little of that. Let's get that support that other countries give to their armed forces. And I assure you, when we put our hands together in all of these places, it's just a matter of time before. Because for the enemy, you know, we tend to underestimate the enemy himself because he is also, you know, using the media, using localities and all of that to win hearts and minds. He's also doing the same thing. But if he sees that we are united against it, I tell you, you will see some of them begin to come out and even surrender. And that's what we're even seeing in the Northeast. The surrendering is not necessarily an infight between the sides. It's the fact that they have seen that Nigerians are beginning to unite, you know, behind the armed forces. And of course, with the firepower that the Air Force and other agencies have brought to bear in that entire operation itself.
Thank you very much for your time. That was the spokesman for the Air Force, Air Commodore Edward Gabquet. It's time for another short break. When we return, our panel of experts here with us in the studio will examine everything we've seen and heard so far. There's more to come. Don't go away.